There we go. Okay. Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. Well, I'm not late. The timer was still clicking down, but yeah, I had a message from somebody online. I may actually still have to reply to this person, but we'll sit here and have a nice discussion while I'm waiting for that person to respond, or they sent it and then now they're immediately taking off and not discussing. Hey, Photon Travel, how are you? Welcome. Glad to see you in our chat here. I'm waiting for your next post, but good to see you either way. Thanks for coming in. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. Got our next interview, I think, set up for Sunday evening U.S. time, so 6:30 p.m. We'll be interviewing a good friend of ours about one of the things that I've done this year. One of the goals that I had set, and some of you saw the videos when I was on vacation last time, was I was trying to set goals of so many interviews. And I'm not only doing interviews of just, anybody can interview anyone who is, popping shells and doing whatever, but I wanted the interviews to mean something. So, one of the things I always wanted to do, Mr. Betcher, myself, and Miss Berlin, were interviewing folks like recruiters. Because one of the things in our industry, we always talk shit about the recruiting and how things work, and to try to, I don't know, see it from the other side, if you will, to not necessarily generate empathy, but to kind of understand the overall process of the recruiting in at least 2024, and figure out that relationship and understand that, the recruiters may not be the problem. Right. And as we saw with Stewart, there's a lot going on there, not just from, the recruiter side. And, there's so many recruiters and, some of them are just throwing shit up against the wall to try to make things stick. But the relationship with the company and the recruiter sometimes gets complicated. And, there's reasons why companies post jobs and some of them are not always 100% on the up and up, but it was great to see insights from Stuart on what recruiting looks like in 2024. And the interview we're having this weekend with our friend Fernando Montenegro is one that we were talking about all the way back in the days of the DerbyCon, and discussion about security analysts and the industry analysts. And Fernando will be speaking about it in generic terms. And when you join us, which I hope you will, to talk with Fernando, when we talked with him, I think the last time I engaged with him about this, we were less informed, and I don't want to say it came off as a bit negative, but we were asking questions that didn't, I don't want to say weren't nice, but it was like, we're asking questions about certain things, and it was obvious that we were still a bit salty about things like Gartner and Forrester and, those security industry analyst reports that talk about how, everybody's awesome, and there were some issues there. So we had a discussion a few weeks ago with Mr. Betcher, Miss Berlin, and myself about capability matrices, and I had made the comment, I was like, I think we just invented what Gartner is. And I reached out to Fernando and actually posted up the video to him, and I said, hey, about 1 hour 59 minutes in, or 1 hour and 29 minutes in, I said this thing, and I was like, I think I understand now kind of what the analyst is about. And so I said, hey, Fernando, could you come on and talk about it? And he said, yeah, let me talk to my manager, and we're good to go. We're gonna have Fernando on Sunday, and we're going to ask some questions. And I've got my Google Doc that I use for guests and things, available, and I'm filling in some questions. And I've got, Fernando, Mr. Berlin, and Mr. Betcher on there. And, some of the questions I'm trying to ask is not like, what is it you say you do here? But because I understand there are some definite reasons to have the Gartners and the Forresters and the other security industry analysts of the world. There's the white papers that they generate for companies serve a purpose, and I'm hoping that in the course of our conversation, those, I have an idea of why I think those come out. I think they're very much akin to an audit or a pen test. It's like in a certain scope, in a certain day, on a certain, it's like some of you watch sports. Some of you watch sports. When they mention a player on the field, that player is always like the top in his group. And if you read the fine print on those things, you see that, well, yes, he's number one as long as he's making catches within 5 yards during the preseason against a certain team. I feel that that's kind of how it is with security analyst papers or, that kind of thing. They're going to come in, having been on the side where the company is doing this for, industry analysts. You get interviews, there's questions that get asked. And the one thing that we'll go a bit more into, I hope, with Fernando is the whole process of that, and to kind of understand, what is it you do here with regards to how you ask questions, what's the scope of the thing? Is it like, I'm imagining it's fairly narrow, kind of like with a pen test. You don't want a pen test that's, this amount of scope. You want more of a scoped document. So this white paper, this discussion about this product is based on these criteria that has been set and modified according to that. And I'm sure there's some secret sauce involved there, and we're not going to get into that because that's IP related, and I don't want to do anything to sour any. I don't want Fernando to feel like his back's up against the wall. So hopefully we'll be able to better understand that. And so when you see these Gartner reports, or you get these Gartner reports from people, maybe from a salesperson, and you pull out they pull out their Gartner report from 2014, and they're like, oh look, we're in the upper right corner. One of the questions I'm going to ask is, hey, what's the shelf life on these kinds of industry analyst reports? It's like, can a salesperson pull out something from 2014 and go, look, we're still up in the upper right hand corner, or see, we're still on the wave and everything? And it's like, 5 years ago, probably, but what are you doing now? What has changed between then and now, and are you still right there in that area? So some of the things that are used, these things are used for sales and for marketing and what have you. So I want to talk with Fernando, and we'll have a good discussion about that. So hope you'll be able to come and join us, or watch the VOD. If you have any questions, you can hit us up on our Discord. Maybe there's some, maybe you won't be able to make it because you're not in the U.S. And you can, join our Discord and say, hey, Brian, got a question about that. Maybe we can ask Fernando. So I won't guarantee we'll ask it, but I will look at it and make sure that, if it isn't like, hey, why do you suck so badly? We'll keep it nice. We'll keep it friendly. But I'm very interested in understanding that whole process, because I imagine it takes a good bit of wordsmithing, very much like a pen test or an audit report. I imagine that there's a lot going on there in terms of how to get the point across so that everyone is happy, I think, in that case. So I'm hoping that that is useful to folks, because I don't want to say these are, untouched areas, but I don't see a lot of podcasts and streams talking about, that the stuff that, a lot of people are like, oh, what values are they getting out of that? So anywho, yeah. So if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. All right. So Patch Tuesday today. I saw that come up online today. Patch Tuesday is the happiest day of the month. So yeah, I don't want to look at Krebs. Yeah, Bleeping Computers got some good coverage on that. Okay, there we go. Boink. There we go. Patch Tuesday, they said that there are 5 critical vulnerabilities. So with all being remote code exec flaws, I believe they're all in RDP terminal, like whatever the terminal services version is here. So there's a couple ODAs and Hyper-V escalation privilege vulnerabilities. So Microsoft fixed and actively exploited Hyper-V elevation privileges vulnerability that gives attackers system privileges. Okay, so, man. Hey, Fix It. Oh, Fix It. Thank you for coming and hanging out here. Fix It is a good friend of ours. Finished up with their stream. Hey, Fix It. How was the stream? Just, you know, wanted to see how you're doing. Hey, how you doing? We're talking about Patch Tuesday. We're going to talk about some polyfill. Apparently, needless markups, or Neiman Marcus in this case, has been owned, and so Lady P had mentioned that in our Discord chat. But today's Patch Tuesday, so we were looking at what might be under the hood if you're going to be pushing your updates to your computers today. So. And, you know, everyone who's watching who didn't come with Fix It, go check out Fix It. Shout out to Fix It, because Fix It is awesome. And so we can, you know, make sure Fix It gets a shout out. But yeah, so there's, you know, escalation privilege from Hyper-V. That's not good. The flaws actively exploited. So let me see. Attack vector is local, complexity is low, privileges required is low. But you would think privileges required to be yes or no. This metric describes the level of privileges an attacker must possess before successfully pointing the vulnerability. So low, attacker is authorized with privileges that provide basic user capabilities that could normally affect only settings and files owned by a user. Okay, so you don't need root or admin or whatever to get system in this case. So user interaction, none. So yeah. So this one was being actively attacked. So let me see. .NET and Visual Studio, remote code exec. An attacker could exploit this by closing an HTTP3 stream while the request body is being processed, leading to a race condition. Ah, okay, all right, very cool. So it was found internally by Radek Zygmunt of Microsoft, and Checkpoint. Let me see. Oh, they didn't mention who found that one or how it was discovered. I'm thinking Hyper-V escalation of privileges. That's got to be an expensive one, right? That's got to be like pretty major. I'm thinking somebody's going to get some fat loot if that was a bug bounty type issue. So, or, you know, because it was actively exploited and it's an ODA, that means maybe some nation state threat actor found it and the logging or what have you is showing up. So maybe that one wasn't found so much as it was showing up in a ransomware or threat actor profile by somebody. So, yeah, Adobe, of course, they had some RCE items as well. Wow, it's just a hot mess. 120, Firefox 128 has fixes for vulnerabilities. No, I'm still on Ireland time. Sometimes I get narcolepsy or I talk too much and don't breathe. And then I find myself, you know, oxygen deprived. And because I am somewhat empathetic, not to be confused with pathetic, I just thinking about yawning makes me yawn. So that's a sign of a, you know, sad mind or, you know, a very malleable mind. So it's that thing where somebody yawns and you yawn too. And if you don't yawn, you're probably a sociopath or something. Yeah. Oh, no, fix it. Yeah. I wish I was on Ireland time. That would be great because that means I'd be in Ireland. So it is what it is. So, yeah, you're gonna have. I think I saw something. What was that? Was that on Reddit? What was it? Attacker. It was something about attackers being able. It was like less than 24 hours. Attackers 24 hours. Reverse engineering patches. So in 2021, they said SAP warns users about installing security patches in a good amount of time. The company claims attackers are able to reverse engineer patches within 72 hours. I thought I saw something just recently that said they can now do it within 24 hours because, I mean, they're already set up. They're already, let me see, past month. Was that it? I know I saw something, it was on Reddit or whatever. I thought it was quoting some kind of news story where they were saying that, within 24 hours, patches like Patch Tuesday or something could come out and Dang, wish I'd kept track of that. I was cleaning out a lot of my my bookmarks the other day. I have about 1,000 bookmarks, which for those of you who, browser tabs are now the new bookmark, and I still have bookmarks, and so yeah. If you or in your team have the skills within hours or days until the patch is released applied to all systems. Yeah, I think it was on LinkedIn or something, but they said, yeah. Okay, so maybe, I think this was it right here. Zero logon identified by dark trace. I think they said, yeah, less than 24 hours. Yeah, within 24 hours, dark trace AI detected cyber attack on healthcare company exploiting this very flaw. Okay, so maybe I was misremembering, but yep. So this is the long week because we all in the U.S. had a major holiday last week, so. It is it is the long week where we're back to 5 days in the work week, so it's causing all kinds of issues. So thanks to Lady P, who is somewhere. I'm hoping she's not dealing with fires. I know that she had to deal with some fireworks stuff last week because pyrotechnics in the United States kind of go together on the 4th of July. But this happened, I think, last week. Yeah, a couple weeks ago. I had seen that Neiman Marcus had been hit, but it had to do with the Snowflake data breach, which was another data breach. So it's interesting. So Neiman Marcus was impacted by another data breach, and they're now having to report that they had 65,000 customers impacted by the theft of its database, the cloud warehousing platform Snowflake. And so the Office of Maine's Attorney General has filed because they notified the Attorney General in Maine, and Maine revealed that it happened in May, between April and May. And the attacker sold the information for $150,000. So 65,000 customers, $150,000. That's what? That's $2 a record. Thereabouts? Yeah, that makes sense. Individuals, name, contact, date of birth, Neiman Marcus or Bergdorf Goodman gift card numbers without gift card pins. Does it matter? I don't know if you need the pin on the gift card to make it happen. If it's a 4-digit pin, then it's not going to take very long to crack. And they said more all 70 million transactions, 50 million customer emails, 12 million gift card numbers were up for sale. Okay, so it was far more than just 65,000 customers. It was all the other additional information involved to make that happen. Whew. It's rough. Strengthening MFA a must. Well, in some cases, it's not strengthening, it's just having MFA. And the Mandy investigation into the account compromises revealed breaches occurred due to customers failing to implement MFA and proper access control. I don't know. You're still going to have customers that would, I mean, a business that deals with customers are not going to want to implement things that are going to create a negative customer experience. And that would be retail. You know, most MFA requires you to trust a second. Let me go shut my door for a second. There we go. MFA requires you to trust something else. So, I mean, it's a chain of trust, right? I mean, if it's SMS MFA, you have to trust your phone. You have to trust your phone number. It's mandatory these days. MFA, is it? Is it mandatory? Photon too. Yeah, I guess I could have talked about RockU 2024 as well, which got updated. It's not new. RockU 2024 password list. Yeah. This is bullshit. This is clickbait. Not 10 billion passwords leaked online. It's bullshit. Yeah, 9.9 million unique plain text passwords. Okay, fine. It's not really new. Somebody took this and glommed on a bunch of other shit, you know. It's funny because where I work at, we get a ton of people who try to submit things through bug bounty appended, right? We get like, hey, we found this Telegram list of passwords and you probably should check it out, give me money. And we're like, yeah, no, we don't take password dumps as bug bounty. And makes the researcher kind of unhappy, but the problem is we can't trust that they didn't take a bunch of email addresses and a bunch of passwords and glommed them together into a key value pair that, you know, now we have to spend dozens and dozens of hours to try to decide whether or not that those are actually legitimate or not. And so RockU's good if you're still cracking passwords in this day and age with your 8 GPUs and what have you. It's great for, back in the day with John the Ripper or whatever, if you're brute forcing things. It's very time consuming. In many cases, it's very noisy. MFA is not, you say, so Photon, you say it's mandatory these days, MFA. And are you in a country that is mandating that it's mandatory, or is it a best practice? Because you know how I love me some best practices. Having the actual password makes the attack a lot easier when you're trying to pass the hash, where an attacker tries to authenticate a remote server by using the hash of the user's password. Right. Yeah, it is a best practice to have MFA. It is also a best practice to make money. So when a customer rails against MFA, or it's been set up in such a way so that it is not a positive customer experience, you're going to find resistance in any industry, not just with security people. I mean, security people are like, yes, MFA, all the things, but we're not by nature business people. So you have to have that justification, right? You have to have a good business reason for that. And if, it's going to be, hey, we're stopping breaches, or we're making breaches less less worthwhile, more painful for the attacker. You're also making it more painful for our customers. So you have to, weigh and balance and shift that, likelihood. Now, if you're Neiman Marcus and you're the security people at Neiman Marcus, yeah, you could say, well, we just got breached. Maybe we need to put in some security. But back to my point about MFA stuff, you have to trust something else to implement MFA. Right now, like I said, if you use SMS MFA, which is probably the least, I'd say it's the least in terms of bar raising, you have to trust your phone, or you have to trust the system that is sending you the code to your phone. So there's actually two things there. If you're using something like OAuth, now you have to trust the OAuth system, like Okta, which, as we've found, is super trustworthy. Or, some other system that, may or may not have been breached. So they're also not foolproof, and they also add to potential risk there. So, if your legal, your privacy, or your business people are any kind of savvy and have read the news and they find out, oh, hey, let's implement Okta. It's like, okay, well, they got breached recently. They've been breached multiple times, I think. So there's the risk there too. If Okta gets breached, are your seeds safe? Some of these things, like your RockU photon, RockU would not be as effective if your passwords were salted. If you were encrypting the salts, you can use password one with a unique salt to add entropy or to add additional bits to it. So you can have RockU with your plain text passwords. A good salt will render your password list less useful. Hey, Walt. We are moving from Okta to Microsoft. Are you using Microsoft Auth? Let me... Microsoft, Azure Auth? Something like... the intra-platform login stuff. Let me see. Wondering if it isn't the intra stuff here. Intra-internet, protect all internet, SaaS, 365. Well, I'd be interested in understanding, what's the need for that? Is it because Okta is a third party and you're like all up in Azure's business and Microsoft's business, so it would make sense to have the IAM platform be as seamless as possible there? Yeah, intra, yeah. ID government, yeah, governance, protect, monitor, audit access to critical assets. Intra ID, so you have, authentication, conditional access, device identity. This is not an advertisement for Microsoft Intra. It's just another solution that could be used. And if you're already in Azure, then it would make sense to use the IAM platform. Okta is much more expensive, so there's an expense involved. You have, your Intra is probably bundled with your 365 or your Azure stuff. Photon, well said about salted variations, especially if handled with rotating schedule of variations assigned to cron or something. Yes, exactly. And I think that's, I don't want to say it's a best practice that we don't do enough of, but I think it adds some complexity on the back end as well. There might be some performance issues. Microsoft comes because we are a Microsoft shop. Well, yes, Walt, yes. My thought was that it comes bundled already, so why have Okta and Intra if you're going to have Intra? You already have Intra because you're buying the Azure bits, your E5s or what have you. It probably comes with that in some way, shape, or form. So it wouldn't make sense to have Okta when you're paying for Intra already. So I can definitely see that as a as a plus. Walt, has anybody brought up the concern about having everything in one basket? If God forbid, it would probably be the story of the century, but if Microsoft was to ever get popped and, all of their customers, completely owned up left, right, and center, and I'm not saying they ever, it could happen, or what have you, but has the thought or the risk of that, was that a suggestion, or did that come up as, hey, what happens if it goes down? If Microsoft was to go down, you basically go home for the day because you can't authenticate to anything, you can't get into anything because it's all in one pile. I don't know what the risk analysis would come in for that, or the business justifications for that. Application integration, so that's cool if you're a Windows shop, or you're building for that, and you can enable your OAuth for customers as well through that as well. That would make sense. You get logs and monitoring and health, which is great. So yeah, y'all can take a look at that. I'm sure it's useful in that respect. Not on that team, not to the security team's information anymore. My source in that team quit. Okay. I was just wondering what the justification was, if it was a business decision, or if security said, hey, we're going to do this, and hey, we'll save money. Sorry about that. I was just asking a question. So yeah, a lot of these things, billions of passwords. That's interesting, because 10 billion passwords. There's a lot there to unpack. How many billions of those is, I don't use. Oh my goodness. Hey, digital. Oh, happy 28 months. Welcome. Thanks for coming and hanging out. So yeah, you've got many variations of password in there. Some of the, if it's been curated properly, anything over 8 characters is going to be, anything under 8 characters is going to be removed. Brute force attacks should be noisy. But yeah, it's highly unlikely there are any services or websites that would allow anyone to try such an enormous number of passwords. Oh, I think I think it was a company-wide effort to save dollars. Sales are down a bit. And Walt, that makes 100% sense. If it's a cost-saving measure, if it simplifies workflows, if you have to worry about any kind of integration issues, ideally Intra for, being a Microsoft product should be more seamless for your Microsoft related items than Okta. Okta's, probably got some pretty good integrations there, but there's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some issues there. And it could have been cited that, hey, Okta's been owned up. I don't know how many times they've been owned up in the last 5 years. Okta breach. Security investigation. It was October of 2023. So, they're learning things. They're probably still doing investigations. There's probably still discussions going on. Yeah. Rethinks security. So they were okay. So at least they were open, more open than what you would normally see about these kinds of things. They rolled out a series of security controls that, in retrospect, should have already been part of its products and IT operations. Company-wide effort catalyzed by September cyber attack that's exposed all of its customers' client systems. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little rough. AWS integration is different. We have a few changes. Okay. Well, the two big companies probably have some kind of agreement to work together in that respect for the authentication or authorization. Amazon, Microsoft, Intra. Yeah, see, here you've got, documentation on configuring your SAML and your SCIM. SCIM to, with Microsoft ID and Intra. So, one less thing, right? And you can actually set up an Intra ID tenant. So yeah, there you go. Preparing your Microsoft tenant, preparing your AWS account. So yeah, I'm sure that they're able to do those things because they've figured out how to manage that at a high level because it just makes sense. So let me see, what was it? Oh yeah, Neiman Marcus, Snowflake breach. Apparently there's a warehousing system, 165 organizations, no MFA, poor password hygiene, probably a third party. Yeah, I remember Ticketmaster and Santander were hit by that. UNC 5537 was aggregating credentials for Snowflake accounts for multiple information stealer programs. So yeah. In this case, RockU would work very well for 5537 to be able to access Snowflake accounts, especially if they haven't been rotated in a couple of years. So in one instance, the threat actor leveraged a credential from November's 2020 information stealer campaign. Oh my God. The victim hadn't updated the credentials in 4 years. And it was part of a previous breach, so either that person didn't find out or they were already using that password long before that. So that's funny. So yeah, we're still seeing things coming up from Snowflake. We'll probably still see more things to come if they haven't rotated all their passwords by then. They probably won't. So Walt actually had mentioned in Discord a couple weeks ago. I think I was in Ireland when he mentioned it, but there's something called polyfill, and it's a code breach. It's a supply chain issue. And this was published on 5 July, so it was last Friday. And they say the polyfill threat seems to be bigger than initially thought. And they said the supply chain attack possibly 3 times bigger than previously thought, according to experts. I don't know who the experts are. We'll figure out who those are. Rather than 100,000 sites thought previously to be hit, new findings from Census research team claims 384,770. Wow, what an odd number. What an interesting number. Claims a week after polyfill was observed serving malware. So nearly 400,000 sites were still linking to the service. And polyfill, polyfill is a piece of JavaScript code that allows older browsers to run newer functions which don't natively support. So, God forbid you're still using IE6 or IE11, which are dead and gone. But there's probably still some hangers-on, some organizations out there still having to use things like IE11 for legacy technology. But after the initial attack, GitHub and Cloudflare and Fastly set up their own versions of the Polyfill IO service, which is this little bitty piece of JavaScript code, so that you could use a trusted alternative. So now you've shifted your trust from polyfill.io to Cloudflare and Fastly, which are SSL-enabled, accelerators or what have you. They say, no website today requires any of the polyfills from the original library. Tweeted the original polyfill service project developer. Most features added to the web platform are quickly adopted by all major browsers. Oh, hey, Tofven, T-O-F-V-E-N, welcome. This is a supply chain issue because the polyfill people sold to another company. That being said, hundreds of thousands of websites are still linking to the malicious service as a major red flag. To make matters worse, among them seem to be high-profile players: Hulu, Mercedes-Benz, Warner Brothers, even a couple of websites belonging to the U.S. government. Well, I don't want to say that's not surprising considering, they were still using IE11 on a lot of the boxes there, so. Funnual owns a number of the other domains that perform malicious activity similar on polyfill, and when combined, more than 1.6 million sites were still linking to them. So the the issue was, yeah, so the site and the accompanying GitHub were sold to a Chinese company named Funnel, like funnel, like a funnel. And it's not the first time we've seen this. There was like a very popular privacy plugin in Firefox that was sold to like a Turkish company. And I seem to remember feeling like some deja vu. Maybe there's a skip in the matrix, but it felt like we've mentioned that one before. But the original owners of Polyfill sold to this Chinese company. Maybe the people who sold it didn't give a shit. And it was like, hey, somebody gave us a couple of $1 million. We're going to go sit Mai Tais on the beach and, you know, screw you hippies, I'm leaving. But the domain that the Chinese company has started redirecting visitors to adults and gambling websites, doing it with malice, obviously, since the redirections were only performed at certain times of day and to visitors that ticked all the right boxes. I'm assuming ticked all the right boxes means coming from certain IP addresses, certain geo ranges, you know, those kinds of things. Of course, Funnel did not reply to anyone's request for comment, which is not surprising as well. But given that, you know, thankfully they sounded the alarm. Like I said, Cloudflare and Fastly set up their own version of Polyfill with the idea that you're supposed to point your website to that version of Polyfill, not the Funnel version of Polyfill. And that obviously didn't happen everywhere because bless me. It's a lot of complicated websites, so some got missed. There's no automation on the website to, bless me, by the way, bless me, to automatically go in and find replace that. Gesundheit, thank you, Photon, thank you. I like to yell Brad Pitt sometimes when people sneeze. Sometimes it actually stops people from sneezing. Brad Pitt can, just utterances of his name can cause people to stop sneezing. But yeah, so I think we're gonna still see more of this. And it might be that you should go in and block. I wonder if we can find, let's go see, go to Mercedes-Benz's website. Maybe they fixed it, I don't know, but let's go see if we can. I don't know. Maybe you have to be running a certain browser or something, but I don't see a Polyfill in here anywhere. So, you get pretty good at like blocking these things when you're using something like, you know, ad block origins, because you're like, oh, it's a CDN, so it's a content delivery network. So, you know, if you want your shit to run properly, you know, the red, amber, green stuff over here is you know, a pretty good indicator of popularity or non-popularity. Ad server, I wonder what that's all about. Bing, there's Cloudflare, which is usually typically trusted because, and then here's another CDN. Sometimes that's for videos or rich content. You know, Google Analytics should be yeeted into the sun forever and ever. Sometimes Google, yeah, depending on what they're pulling from Google, it could be fonts or something like that. But yeah, so some of these, you know, you have to enable if you want the site to work properly. Centrics, usually that always means metrics, which means tracking. But it's in the EU, so hopefully it's being done in a responsible manner. But, you know, I don't know where you would find that in here. I think the worst thing I've ever seen is when you log in and then you go and look at this stuff and you're finding that they're making requests after you've logged in or in the, you know, what would be a secure enclave to like Google Analytics or something. I trust 1111 more than 8888. I'm a big fan of that one. I also like OpenDNS, which is, I think, what, 208.67.222.222. I think that's OpenDNS IPs. That's always a good one. Yeah, these, yeah, 208.67.222.222 and 22. They're also it's 222.220 and you know, 220.222. So if you mix and match the 222s and the 220s, Those, I think, are the other two that you can get from that as well. I set those up on my ISP instead of using 75, 75, 75, 75, and 76, 76, 76, 76, which is what Spectrum uses. So, but yeah, so those are the ones I use for that. So, yeah, 1111 is Cloudflare. Some people have issues with Cloudflare though, because they, in the past, have allowed domains ran by white supremacists and hate groups to be using their services with the idea of, well, we're just passing the traffic or whatever. So depending on your philosophical stance, supporting or assisting hate groups is signing off on what they do by allowing them to take advantage of your services. So in some cases, maybe you don't want to use 1111. You want to use something like maybe some other. I remember hearing it on Risky Business. So Cloudflare, I think it was Cloudflare. So I think it was a Stormer. I think hate domains. Yeah. So this was, albeit 6 years ago. But Matthew Prince, who I believe at the time was a CISO of Cloudflare, had terminated Daily Stormer, which is a hate group. We've stopped proxying their traffic and answering DNS requests for their sites. We've taken measures to ensure they can't sign up for Cloudflare services again. So they did it in the past. They did fix themselves after a lot of negative backlash on that. So I mean, it really is, hopefully they've gotten better. And they're not doing so much anymore, but they did take a good bit of shit back in 2017 because of these issues. And some people are like, yeah, once you've done it, you can't be redeemed. So, but they did do what it took to fix those issues. So, our team's been thorough, thoughtful discussions for years about what the policy on censoring. Like a lot of people, we felt angry at these hateful people for a long time, but have followed the law and remained content neutral as a network. We could not remain neutral after the claims of secret support by Cloudflare. Yeah, so people made claims that they're supporting secretly that issue. So Cloudflare also do the, hey, that is a real nice domain there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, and force an upgrade to Enterprise for 10 or 100x more cash. Oh, I didn't know that, Walt. But yeah, so this was a, yeah, so in the case of Daily Storm, initial request we received to terminate their service came from hackers who literally said, get out of the way so we can DDoS this site off the internet. So us gray hat hackers were like, yeah, we want to DDoS the fuck out of these people. And so, get out of the way because you're helping them, you're not harming them. So we want their content off the internet. So. But anyway, you can go read that if you want to, the full doc on that. So yeah, supply chain's going to supply chain, right? And polyfill is just one example. There's just so many different ways to do supply chain insecurity these days, whether it be NPM packages or Python packages, or who's managing your front end to be protecting from DDoS, or who's managing your DNS or your subdomains for takeover kind of purposes. This was, oh wow, this is May 26th. Wow. Cloudflare took down our website after trying to force us to pay $120K within 24 hours. Some serious issues with your Cloudflare account settings potentially affecting our network. Please resolve as a matter of urgency. See, now, if I'd have gotten that email, Walt, the first thing I would have thought of was, is that a legit email? Because one, matter of urgency is bolded. We need to resolve the situation ASAP. I would have been like, okay, delete, I would not have taken that seriously, because it would have been like, is that true? We scheduled a call with their business development team. Yeah, it sounds like a phishing scam for sure. Yeah, anything pushing the, hey, contact us ASAP, fix this now, and setting up a call for Monday. It's like, that might have been okay, but I mean, you can, yeah, anyway. 2 weeks later, received another email following intelligence of your account being involved in a domain rotation activity. Use of is strictly prohibited. Wow. Bit of context. We do have multiple domains that mostly act as mirrors to our main domain. We have a few of these for a few reasons. One is a casino. Different regulatory requirements we need to comply with in many countries. Many games are only available in some countries. Some countries we block completely. We have a few domains for certain game groups or site features. For example, our social features, chat, user tipping interaction, or sports book. Okay, so yeah, I mean, you're going to run into some issues where you have to block certain websites, like, you can't gamble in Turkey. I don't want to say that's true, but there are definitely some sites in the Middle East or whatever where you can't get to gambling sites because they've been blocked by local government or something like that. So, trust and safety team. We're actually talking to sales again. Oh, that's interesting. So that would be a problem for me if I was supposed to be talking to their trust and safety team, but I was talking to their sales folks. Yeah, that would be rough. Note the email implies a monthly payment might be possible when asked for clarification. Yeah. Yeah, if they're not nice to gambling sites, it's not a minus. I mean, they're not hate groups, but sports book. I mean, being over in England or being over in the UK and seeing Premiership, with advertisements far earlier than the NFL did, the sports book betting and everything online was a huge deal back in the day. So it was a gambit from sales to pressure them, taking advantage of stupid people. That's true. Yeah, Walt, that's, I mean, I would, that sucks. Did they, Cloudflare deleted their domains. Interesting. Huh. Well, that's not good. Trust and safety team will reach out to you soon. Please note that your request for technical support has been closed as our trust and safety team. Trust and safety never reached out. Their account remains locked. My tips for you when Cloudflare reaches out: congrats, your business must be pretty successful. So some of this is a humble brag, right? Oh, maybe you hit 10 terabytes of traffic a month. Sales rep realized they haven't hit their quarterly quota yet. Some of this is definitely editorializing, but I guess at some point you can't take advantage of whatever tier you were in, and it's they want you to move to a higher level for whatever reason. But it would seem like Cloudflare should be a bit more transparent about what it takes to actually make that happen. So tried to ask how price is going to be affected if we have less traffic, but they refuse to say anything except 80 terabytes is included. We have a large amount of callback traffic, uses IP whitelists, and doesn't need to go through CDN. Yeah, again, exactly. Fix it. Unless your prices vary by at least one order of magnitude. Anyway, so lots of stupid stuff for sale online. Yeah, I mean, we have Temu, we have Alibaba. I mean, we have a ton of stuff, right? Yeah, I don't know if Amazon uses Cloudflare or what they use, but I mean, there's we're not the only ones who got their business threatened by their aggressive sales tactics. Okay, so there's other organizations that apparently were targeted by Cloudflare. Don't expect any kind of courtesy or sales or support calls. That's that's an interesting article. I'd have to go back and read through all that had happened. Yeah, don't register domains directly on Cloudflare. Yeah, my own domains are through like GoDaddy, and I actually point to Google's domains, DNS actually. I use GitHub's domain for some of the pages that I have, which is kind of cool. This would actually be a great article if you're wanting to engage Cloudflare, because it'd be like, if you're busy, if you're not a gambling organization, you would have to say, well, this is how much traffic we push on a regular basis. Is that going to impact us? But this is also, back to my question with Walt about putting everything in one bucket. If you go all in on Cloudflare, including DNS and domain registration and all this stuff, and, be ready to move away from Cloudflare within 24 hours. Never register the domains directly there. If they do that and you block you, they don't know how to get your domain back in a reasonable time frame. There are negatives about going all in with one vendor. So sometimes it's good to have separate diversification. Diversification is important. Amazon is a platform for people to sell on. Some sellers will always be crappy. You can't compare that to a gambling site where everything is bad. It's true. Oh, yeah. Well, you'd mentioned here that, there's at least 2 or 3 links to other websites where on Hacker News where people had been hit up by terms and conditions. Yeah, so these are back in 2023. This is a 2023 as well. Small SaaS banned by Cloudflare after 4 years of being a paying customer. Tardis.dev. Okay. I've been heavily Cloudflare worker user, 4 billion requests. Okay. Are you a small SaaS? Are you a small SaaS with 4 billion requests and a petabyte of data a month? I don't. This is in the past, but it's like, what do you consider a large SaaS in this case? It's, that's a lot of data. That's a lot of requests. I mean, that's I guess, I transferred domains Namecheap to Cloudflare because I'd heard good things. Everything was working well, and now nothing is working. No warnings, nothing. Transfer me to their trust and safety. It sounds like maybe trust and safety doesn't exist. Or maybe they're just so busy they can't get to everything and everyone. So maybe they're dealing with that. So everything in moderation, I think, is the course here for. I think Cloudflare's blocked my access to some sites, knowing had one driver downloads. Yeah, I've actually been blocked. Sometimes I get asked if I'm a human, or it will, because of where I work, I'll visit a website and I've been blocked because maybe I inhabit the same IP range as something that somebody has automated and broke something. It kind of pops up weird like that. So that's why I have my personal box next to me, so that I'm on a different IP range and what have you, and I'm able to get to what I need. So interesting. So yeah, yeah, the human checks. I've actually blocked myself by just futzing around with the robot thing, like pick all the things that look like buses, and I've been like, oh, I'll just randomly click on other things. Once you do that enough times wrong, you literally can't get it right anymore, and it will not let you in. So don't futz around with that, especially if it's an important website that you just and don't do it while you might be inebriated. No, Digital Warhead. Yes, definitely not that ever on my work PC. Not ever. As a matter of fact, because of the way Google algorithm works, when you look up something, sometimes you get responses back that shouldn't be on your work computer. And I'm not saying I'm looking up porn or anything, but it's like sometimes it will say something like you put in like a meme or something like that. You got to watch memes too. Sometimes it's like, I put in the yo dog thing, or I go to image flip or whatever, and it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go to image flip for this specific meme. So I end up, coming over to my personal box to be able to do memes on there. So, but who all's going to Vegas? DEF CON and whatever. I'm really excited about DEF CON. So I'm not flying. I'll be taking a van with some friends of mine, and I get a, they're comping as a hotel room. So I get a hotel at DEF CON for the entirety of DEF CON. And I found out that my organization will actually pay for the van ride. So I'm going to end up taking a van ride to Vegas, and so I'll be able to pay for that. But who all's going to, DEF CON, Black Hat, B-Sides, Diana Initiative, any of the sub-cons that are going on? I'm looking forward to that. I went last year. I'm starting a new job in August, so timing isn't opportune this year. Oh, that's too bad, Photon. I would have loved to have seen you and met you and shook your hand. I'm going to hopefully be running LineCon with Mr. Rando this year. I have never been in LineCon, so it'll be interesting to see it from the other side here. So looking forward to that. Let me see. Let me see. Oh, yeah, polyfill. Hey, Walt, you brought up polyfill. Were you affected at all by polyfill? Didn't know if your organization still had need for that, or if... yeah, I assume so, Digital Warhead. Shorter van trip than when we drove to Vegas from Seattle. Yeah, it's still going to be like 125 degrees or something. I think they're dealing with like record heat right now. Yeah, 115, 100. Oh, it's going to cool down to 106 by next Wednesday. So that's nice. It's going to cool down to 106. Yeah, I guess they stand in line. Yeah, Digital. Yeah. I am, however, doing a talk with my local chapter in a couple of months on the history of cryptography. Also, it would have been nice to meet up with you on my end, 2025 perhaps. Yeah, if they let me come back and goon again in 2025, I will probably be there. Yeah, Digital Word, I don't know how LineCon works, and I don't know how they've done it in previous years at different venues. The convention center in Vegas is where we're doing it this year, so I don't know what that's going to look like. We're going to Glasgow next month. No DEF CON for me. Oh, go to Glasgow, man. Yeah, don't worry. DEF CON will be here. Glasgow will be there as well. But yeah, definitely go to Glasgow if you can. But yeah, I don't know how LineCon works. The way I understand it is, and I saw when we signed up for, can you work these times? So I was like the third person who signed up to volunteer for gooning, and it was like you got to pick from a drop-down box. So it was like, oh, midnight to 7 a.m. And I was like, Jesus Christ, who's going to be there for that? And then I realized, well, if you're European time, that's probably like 3 in the afternoon for you or whatever. So 3 in the afternoon, in Germany is 2 a.m. or no, not exactly. It's going to be a little later, but you're going to be awake from midnight to 7 Pacific time, which is where Vegas is. So there's going to be people standing in line. So it's like, what does that look like? Can you take your shoes off and just put those in line, and then you can go and sleep somewhere, or what does that look like? So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Yeah, it's going to be a big thing. So, but yeah, they had 120 degrees yesterday. So, well, that is a hot, dry wind. I don't think they're going to have 15% chance of precipitation on Sunday when it's 105 degrees. So yeah, I'm not feeling that. I don't know how it can be partly cloudy and 115. I don't get that either. It actually did rain on us the last time I was in Vegas, which I found quite interesting. It was a very hot rain, but yeah. Yeah. So I'm getting hungry. Let's see, what else do we have? I saw something, this is for US Americans, but it's interesting to see that they have to put in legislation that is going to help streamline the various, cybersecurity regulations. So it's bipartisan. So, we have a two-party system here in the United States. We have the Democrats and the Republicans. And so a couple of senators are trying to streamline the patchwork system of cybersecurity regulations. So apparently there's so many of them that you might do one thing here and it contradicts or makes you in violation of another cybersecurity regulation over here. 106 in Walla Walla, Jesus. Yeah, no, thank you. What is it here? I can't type for shit, but Google knows what I want. Yeah, so it's not 63 right now, that's for damn sure. Yeah, it's warm here, so it's not 63 degrees. So yeah, it's going to get up to 76, 77. The whole thing, like with Seattle and San Diego, has microclimates. So the official weather temperature is at the airport, which is down near the ocean. And you go in 10 miles and it's about 5 degrees warmer. And then you go in another 10 to 15 miles across, the I-15 corridor, and then that's another 5 degrees. And then you've got the mountains, and then you got the desert, which, by the time you get out to the desert, it's 110 degrees, but whatever the official is at the airport, which is usually one of the cooler places in the county. So it's kind of funny to see that. So, but yeah, we're obviously maximum heating of the day right now, 77. Yeah, I can imagine Seattle. I want to say it was June or July, and we had like 115 degree temperatures in Seattle. What was that? 115 in Seattle, summer. Yeah, 2021. Yeah, we had 108 degrees in Seattle. That was crazy. And out of my house, where I used to live in Snoqualmie, which is about 40 minutes east of Seattle, the temperature got up to 115 degrees, and had to go outside, see what that felt like. But yeah, 108 degrees was the highest temperature in 151 years since detailed record keeping began in 1870. So it was really weird how that high pressure system kind of, retrograded up north there. So sorry, dorks. I'm a dork. So made it worse because, we were still kind of in the lockdown in that area in that time frame in 2021. We were still coming out of that. So air conditionings were still a premium and what have you. So yeah. So I was looking at, one of the things that we were talking about back at the beginning of the stream when I was talking about, industry analysts and stuff. And for those of you who missed it, we're going to have Fernando Montenegro on to talk about, let's see, Montenegro. Yeah. Yes. Fernando, we're going to have him on this weekend to talk about cybersecurity trends, insights, and advice, and those things. He's a technologist, strong interest in cloud security, enterprise programs. He's an industry analyst, part of the Omdia cybersecurity team. But he's also worked at other organizations like, let me see, he's worked at S&P Global Market Intelligence. He's worked as a principal analyst at 451. He's also worked as a solutions architect. So he's been in the industry many, many years. Worked at various places. So we're going to understand how, security analysts work and try to get some information. But we were talking about capability matrices, and there, Ms. Berlin had talked about product opportunity, POEM, which was a framework for thinking through conditions of a market for building and launching a product, and some of the things you ask yourself when you're building. Well, some of the things you're supposed to ask yourself when you're building a product. And we were talking about strengths and weaknesses. Some of you may have done a SWOT analysis, SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. Threats. So, SWOT analysis, what resources we deploy, what are our advantages, what's working well, what are we lacking, what are we struggling, what are we overcoming, who might most value our strengths, what trends work in our favor, what prizes are within reach, what headwinds do we face, who might challenge us, and what could go wrong. So in this case, threats is, threats to our business or who our competitors are, what are some of the things that might cause our product to suffer difficulties, like MFA, for instance. What are some of the challenges? Well, it might be difficult for, less technical users to use, or the workflow that we've used to establish this might be issue. I'm not using that anyway. So one of the other things Ms. Berlin had mentioned during her product management course was POEM, which is a framework for thinking through conditions of a market prior to launching or building products. 5 key forces: customer, product, timing, competition, and finance. So there's, some discussion on, some of that. I will post this article in the chat, but I will caveat that by saying that there was a link in here that I would not click on. This right here, it got real weird when I clicked on that link, and I'll show you what happens when I click on it. You would think you would go to a framework page, but you get this weird thing. It's almost like maybe the poemframework.org went away. But what it tried to do is have me install a Firefox plugin of some kind, of which I said, I noped the fuck out of that real good. And of course, add uBlock Origin is automatically telling me, nope the hell out of this. So go back. Of course, the page is blocked, but don't click on this link. No clicky, bad link. But yeah, so there's, some discussions about your frameworks, identifying your customers, having a meaningful problem to solve. So I was trying to tie some of this into what might a security analyst ask, kind of in reverse to a company, and looking at some of these items, sunk cost, cash flow requirements. So some of this is like, should we even go through doing this? And, are we ticking all these boxes on this? So I'm going to see if, obviously, poemframework.org doesn't exist anymore, but, there's enough things out there about the different POEM framework that, you don't need to go to the website. I did like their example here where they were talking about how cell phone service works to create location. When you're talking about coarse or fine location in a cell phone network, you have a GPS transponder which can go up to satellites and go, yes, here we are. But then you have you can triangulate based on certain antennae. So if you're 800 feet away from this antenna and you're 200 feet away from, or 400 feet from this one and 200 from this one, you can triangulate based on the signal to kind of get they call it coarse location range. It's not perfect. You're within, say, 20 or 30 feet instead of down to 3 meters where you might be for a proper GPS connection. But yeah, so you're the different facets of the, market moving and changing will tell you where you are with regards to certain facets of these things, like, clearly identifiable customers, meaningful problems that you're going to solve. If you've got a floating toilet seat, you need to understand, well, who's your customer, right? Accessibility and loyalty. How many people are going to want to sit on a floating toilet seat? So there's a number of different things in here, and I don't want to say you can use this for security, but if you're trying to push out initiatives, you're pushing out a product as well, right? And you can ask yourself, in the context of, will your customers use this? Is it solving meaningful problems? Is it worth taking the time and effort to do? What's the sunk cost of us going through and building this tool to do this thing? Are there already tools out there being used? A lot of big companies, if you've got, security teams in different business units, or, you've got, different products may have their own security teams. They may build their own tooling. Is there something already being built or already out there that could be leveraged? Are you reinventing the wheel? So some of these things could actually be used in different contexts. Instead of external customers, your internal customers are also your customers. And to be fair, you could be your own customer. So are you building something that you will use? Is it sustainable? Is it worth taking the time and effort to build that out? So just to take a look at that. But like I said, don't click on this. Bad link, bad. Bad. Because it says there you'll find detailed explanation for each of the criteria and how to use them. But I'm fairly certain you can find other places online where to find that. And if you really want to do product management, there's apparently a conference in Raleigh, North Carolina in October to do that kind of stuff. So but yeah. Actually, I feel like I need to find. I was going to talk about ATS resumes because if we've still got time. Poem framework. Yeah, so there's different stage assessments. Let's see here, poem framework. Yeah, so interesting. Organization, milestones. Yeah, milestones. Because Miss Berlin, she works with Blumira, so they're putting out product, security product, or they don't want to spend a bunch of money on a product that customers won't use. So you do things like voice of the customer. My wife has actually told me a little bit about some of this, about what she does, where she works. About are you listening to your customers? You have data. It's really somewhat data driven in that respect. So, but yeah, can go check out some of those things. I know that's exciting, but sometimes folks that are building products, sometimes you've got to ask them. Even security people, I would say security people are the first people you would want to ask that question to. Is this something you should be wasting your time on? Or not wasting, but is this something you should be spending your time on? If it's some kind of niche, uber niche thing that's only going to be useful for this amount of time, does it scale? Are you able to share it? How are you going to maintain it? That kind of thing. Maybe it's not worth building. Maybe you should buy it versus building it, which is another thing that you find out when you're dealing with product. Should you buy or build? Does your wife also work in the tech field? Yes, she does. She is amazing, but she's a program manager, portfolio manager, hopefully a director soon at a fairly well-known company that is in the Seattle area. So, but yeah, you can go look through this. I'm sure there's no shortage of stuff out there on. Plus, it looks like they have templates for this stuff too, so you can go through and fill out your poem stuff as well. So there's poems methods for user observation research. Takes a lot of time, but I always say any good product, any process would take time if you want to make sure that you're going to put something out that's going to be successful. There's probably a lot of organizations out there that like to throw stuff at the wall and hope that it sticks. And but yeah. So there looks like this atomic object has a lot of artifacts you can use for poem as well. So, but yeah, just don't go click on poemframework.org. So there you go. Anyway, so yeah, I was looking through on Reddit. Somebody had mentioned about hiring, especially in like r/security or r/hacking, and they were talking about, and I go back to the recruiting thing, and it's like we have issues with recruiters being able to recruit effectively. We have problems with job descriptions. We have problems with companies that are putting out jobs that actually don't go anywhere because they're just phantom jobs. But the other thing is there are so many different types of resumes. And one of the big things that somebody had mentioned on there was something called the ATS friendly resume, and I didn't know what the hell that was. And it's applicant tracking system now that I know that. So you have your work days, your teleos, you have your, when you're applying for a job, they're like, oh, click here. It's very simple. And it's like, okay. And then, you go here and you're like, oh, upload your resume. And then you upload your resume as you wrote it. And it tries its best to parse through the resume and fill the things in. But as I found that some of those are hit and mostly miss. And that was probably because my resume, which I probably should be updating only because it's been 3+ years since I've done so, is not ATS ready or ATS friendly. So I've never dealt with a recruiter, but it seems like a scummy and scammy industry. Stuart will tell you from Hampton North that there are a lot of them. I mean, we only hear about. I don't know if we've ever heard of a good recruiter story, but they have to exist. But it's probably one of those things where it's like you never hear about the good recruiters, you only hear about the bad recruiter stories. So I would like to believe that there are legitimate recruiters out there. I think Stuart kind of gets it. I think we've talked with him. Let's see, Hampton Roads recruiting. Oh, Hampton North. I'm sorry, Hampton North. This is cybersecurity search firm. Meet the team. Stuart, we had him on the show. Our good friend Mr. Noid, Brian Harden, who we've had on the show as well, recommended this guy that he kind of gets it and he understands. And he posts quite a bit on LinkedIn about various things having to do with recruiting. Talks about all kinds of stuff. So he gets it. I think you can go back and watch the stream that we did. I did with him on that when we were talking about those things. But he's got a list of jobs. He does try to push back when he can. I think it just it's important to the people are going to email you directly. It's the spray and pray kind of stuff. Yeah, it's going to cause you issues. But then I would argue that, do we have the same kind of networks that we had before the pandemic now? I thought I had a pretty good network, but I could not get my friend through the door on several interviews for people. And it's like, maybe my network isn't as good as I thought it was. So, so there's, Indeed has a decent article from 2023, albeit, but it is within the year ish, about how to, make sure you write a decent resume. And of course, if you're looking for a job, there you've got Indeed here to help you with that. And I actually know somebody who works at Indeed, does quite a bit of coding, I think, for the back end portions. But yeah, so they targeting keywords specified by the employer, sort through incoming resumes for a position. I'm sure they're automating that. A lot of the recruiters and the companies are doing so. Having dealt with some recently, I had strong suspicions about, and 2 others that were legit. So Photon's 50-50. He's 50%. He's 2 for 2, or 2 for 4, 2 for 4, 2 for 4. I can't math. So, but it's all, the one thing that I think that I don't do enough of that I should is, you do kind of have to consider the job description, your list of keywords. There's several videos here. She talks about where your resume passed an ATS. Of course, none of this stuff is guaranteed to actually get you a job, but it makes it easier, kind of, or it will ensure better visibility potentially in the keyword scanning. And putting the keywords in white at the bottom, that gets picked up fairly quickly. But yeah, create a list of keywords. Start with the keywords listed in the job description, then identify which words or phrases the job listing repeated the most within the description. Now, this might be where like an AI would be able to help you out with some of that. It's like, okay, which words, or maybe if you plugged a job description into something like that would create a word wall or something like that, where it would show you the most likely words that you should use and pick up on. Definitely use AI, because everyone's doing it. Just don't copy paste what the output for the AI is. It would be tantamount to like plagiarism or what have you. Plus, they probably could pick up on that nowadays. Avoid complex formatting. Use standard headings like work history, work experience, and experience are easily identified. The most common headings. No tables, columns, headers, or footers can be effective for organizing, but it translates this information. You don't want your stuff to get lost, right? It'll scan your resume. You could potentially lose that stuff. Yeah, make multiple resumes. So yeah, if you're trying for a specific type of job, you want to highlight only that experience, and you don't want to go, oh, I do this, and I do this, and I do this, because then it would feel like potentially you are not as skilled in one thing, but you're kind of, covering multiple things. So, yeah, you can create copies or minor adjustments to your resume to add additional step, but it'll make for more competitive resume application. So, and of course, there's no shortage of, let me see, where was it? I think I closed it. So there's no shortage of ATS resume templates out there. Yeah, so, something easy. I know wasn't Digital Warhead, but our good friend D. Matthews had mentioned, so you see you've got, career summary. Maybe you don't have a summary. People are still out, there's still some kind of suggestion about like cover letters and things. And I guess it depends on how much work experience. So you might want to, if you don't have a lot of experience, you might add your skills, like, keeping it real, or, soft skills experience. You might have professional experience if you want to put your last, I would say no more than 4 or 5 years back. Or, if you had a job more than 5 years back that was applicable to this position, you might add those. But, just try to keep it somewhat. I mean, I've seen ones that had like colored, sections, and I've seen that, and it's like, yeah, I don't know if those are actually any good or somewhat legit. So, black and white, you don't have to put your phone number. I wouldn't put your city, state, and zip. It's a little weird. Email and LinkedIn would probably be what I would put. I wouldn't put city. Yeah, I wouldn't put city, state, zip, and phone number unless you actually think it would help. But just remember that these often end up in databases, which then get potentially, scraped for sales leads as well, especially if, the salespeople are looking for sales leads. So if you don't go with their company and you go with a different company, now you might be a potential sales lead. Just something to think about, that you can get targeted for that kind of stuff. So you might actually want to create an email just for the job search. That way you can weed that out later on, or it's like, hey, I don't need this email right now, and you can block that stuff later on. Anyway, yeah, I'm not saying I'm looking to update my resume, but it's been 3 years, and a lot of stuff happens in 3 years. So it's always good to have those ready and available, and that way you don't forget things too. So if you've done something 3 years ago, are you going to remember it when you're sitting unemployed, and it's like, oh, I can't go and look on my work computer for jobs or things that I've done because I don't have access to that anymore. So now I'm sitting here hammering my brain to go, oh yeah, I worked on Secret Project X, and that allowed me to do X, Y, and Z, and I did this stuff and whatever. So keeping track of those things, maybe keep copies of your evaluations, or keeping track of your brag sheets that you give to your bosses if you do promotions or anything like that is very helpful. Keep those locally on your personal computers, so that way you can refer back to them if you're having to write your resume out. So anyway, yeah, I just know that there's a lot of folks out there still looking for jobs, and there's actually, I've seen stuff on my own timeline that says, is InfoSec full up or what have you. Oh yeah, there you go. Black Girls Hack. That's good stuff there. But yeah, I'd seen articles about, hey, InfoSec is full up, and it's like, yeah, there's, you get into a lot of discussions on these things about that. Oh yeah, by the way, Portswigger, they took some money. They got a new round of funding, I think $13 million, something like that. So, $112 million. There you go, $112 million. So Portswigger is going to be doing something cool with $112 million. They better. Yeah, Burp is now Burp Suite, centerpiece of startup called, playing on the Portswigger, 20,000 organizations, 170 countries, 80,000 individuals, and well over 1,000 enterprises and organizations are using its paid enterprise services. Enterprises including Microsoft, Amazon, FedEx, Salesforce, and more. So if you have a security team in your organization, including like Fortune 1, you are probably using Portswigger and Burp Suite at some point, which was great. No, I need to get in on some of that sweet. Hey, Age, how you doing? Hey, yeah, I need to get in on some of that advertisement, sweet advertising. They have a pretty good security academy too. So if you're learning web app security, or you're wanting to, you can get involved with them as well. So. And do that. I think our good friend Wimmery was doing some of their Portswigger Academy stuff, and it's free, right? Learning paths you can go through, and API testing, LLM attacks, CSRF, cores, GraphQL. I know the folks over at OWASP would like, yeah, use Zap, but actually, what Zap is no longer part of OWASP. Weird, but yeah, I mean. You can go and do all of these different paths for race conditions, SQL injection, prototype pollution. I mean, and some companies will actually pay for your Burp license. So $300 ain't bad. It gives you access to some of the modules, some of the plugins that you can get that are only available in the paid version. But people have actually made non-free versions of the paid plugins and just named them something different, or has gotten similar functionality. So, but yeah, you can't go wrong by that. And doing these things, if you need CISP credits, which I might actually have to do in the next few months, because I also got an email saying my GCIH certification is coming due within the year. So a couple of our upcoming streams may be me running through this stuff, just so that I can, I'll have proof that I did at least 2 hours worth of web app certification stuff. And get my GCIH and everything hooked up. So I've got enough time. I have to, do it in November, so I've got enough time to go through and do all that. But anyway, glad everybody could be here today. I'm very happy about that. Every one of you energize me and make me, after a long, hard day, I find myself needing to feed off of your energy, like a vampire or something. In a good way, and so, yeah, I think we can, what's this down here? Hey, Fixie, yeah, you have a good night, and yeah, thanks, Photon. Anybody have any place we should go and learn stuff? Brainstorming ideas, building a new keyboard. Huh, interesting. Ending with Allie. Yeah, no worries, Fix It. Thanks so much. Yeah, Digital, you have a good evening too. Let's go do ending with Allie. Let's go see what she's doing.
Which keyboard do you have, Wolf?
Oh, she's building out a keyboard.
The Moonlanders are.
And we're gonna
like, I do not know.
Go see if we can raid Allie here. Who's building out a keyboard, assembling and doing stuff. So,
I literally did nothing.
hope you all have a good night, and I will see you again very soon. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
If
Bye,
I
y'all.
made like a workout app, but you could only